Well, it was an election result that shocked most, so how well did the pollsters do when it came to predicting the outcome? Joining me now from central London is Head of Political and Social Research at YouGov, Joe Twyman, and CEO and founder of London Advertising, which runs political campaigns, Michael Moszynski. Well, starting with you, Joe, YouGov did predict a hung parliament in their last poll, but before that, nobody had any idea. They thought that Theresa May would get a majority. So how did it account for that it was so wrong?
Well, a couple of weeks ago, we published our first seat estimate based on a statistical model we've been developing to try and work out how the result might pan out. It's fair to say that that estimate was not met with universal acclaim, and as a result, we were forced to defend our methods. But as time progressed, that statistical model, didn't seem to move, despite all of the events, the good, the bad, and indeed the tragic events that happened in the intervening period. The explanation for this, I think, and we're still crunching the numbers, comes down to the turnout of youth vote. And that really also explains why there was such a difference in the polls. The degree to which young people were willing to turn out in this election, as your previous guest talked about, determined not just whether Theresa May would get a majority or not, it determined the size of any majority she would get. And so you had some pollsters predicting, for instance, a majority of 80 or perhaps even more than that. You had others predicting a hung parliament, and that was all down to the work done on whether young people would turn out or not.
And Mr. Moszynski, you didn't see this coming?
No, I was, in fact, I would like to apologise to Joe because I gave him a very tough time on this programme about 8 days ago, saying that the model that they were using I felt was irresponsible. It actually turned out to be right. The key thing, though, is that, as Joe mentioned, the youth turnout was extremely high. It was, I think, 63%, which was up 50% on 2015. But it was much lower than the other poll that predicted a hung parliament, which was Cantor, who were predicting 82%. And I did go on the record to say I would eat my hat if that was the case. I actually think that the increase in youth vote is a fantastic thing. I always believe that everyone who has the vote should use it. And I think, as your previous speaker, Adam, said, that the politicians need to learn from this and to get their campaigning actually representing all of the nation. This is actually a very good thing. So I think we should be seeing some real positive benefits from this going forward.
OK, coming to you, Joe, can Theresa May hold on now? And if not, who are those likely to take over?
Well, we're publishing our first poll subsequent to the election result tomorrow in the Sunday Times, and one of the things that we're exploring is where things go from here. We're still crunching the numbers on that, but my sense is that, that Theresa May's authority within her party has been damaged irreparably, and within the country as a whole, she's walking a very fine line. I imagine that as each day goes past, it will benefit Jeremy Corbyn just a little bit more, but of course, how to plan an exit strategy and how to remove herself from office while at the same time being able to maintain a position for the party and the government in negotiations on Europe, and also all the legislation domestically that needs to be passed, that's an extraordinarily difficult tightrope of public opinion to walk.
Michael, bringing you in here, some people are asking, could Jeremy Corbyn become Prime Minister? Is that a possibility?
I don't think so. I think he did an incredible job personally as a campaigner and defied everyone's expectations, and he not only energised that youth vote, he also was able to get it to come out. So I think he's, as a campaigner, he has won the election. I don't think as a party, the Labour Party, they're so far down in terms of seats to be a credible government. So I think that Theresa May will do what's right for the country, create, ironically, a period of stability. And I suspect that we may look at another election. It may be this autumn, it may be beyond that. But I think at the moment we all need to allow the government to proceed and pull the country together. And I also think it's important that
another election already. Do you think, I mean, looking at Theresa May's campaign, where did she go so wrong? And should she now look at getting rid of those very close aides to her?
Well, I think the campaign from Theresa May was appalling. She didn't really have a narrative. She was put on the back foot over the things that she should have been on the front foot over, for example, on security, the social care policy, which was, I think, actually very brave and genuine, but she hadn't got the support of her cabinet or the party, and therefore when she then withdrew it, she actually earned the title weak and wobbly rather than strong and stable, which she was campaigning on. So I think she has a lot of the responsibility. I think that coterie of close advisors was clearly not giving her the right advice, and there's definite calls within the higher reaches of the party for some of those very close advisors to be removed.
Well, picking up on that strong and stable, we heard it throughout the campaign, didn't we? Joe, just talk me through, does she have any sway now when she's talking about Brexit negotiations?
Well, the negotiations are set to begin in only 8 days, and as far as I understand, although the situation is changing very quickly, the agreement with the Democratic Unionists in Northern Ireland has not yet been formalised, and so quite how that changes things remains to be seen. But it's certainly a weakened position going into Europe, regardless of what she is able to achieve with the DUP, and it makes things incredibly difficult for her moving forward. I think the only question now is whether she can survive as long as the party conference. I think surviving beyond the Conservative Party conference this autumn will be extremely difficult, but we shall see.
Do you think it would have been the right thing for her to step down?
Well, it depends on what you mean by the right thing. From a political point of view, for her to step down now brings into question whether her party is sufficiently placed to get a Queen's speech passed, even with the Democratic Unionists in support. Without a leader, that's a difficult thing to sell. That then leaves the door open for some sort of coalition with Labour and effectively everyone else. Now, that's not very practical, but it leaves the door open for that, and it could start discussion on that, which I imagine is the thing she wants to avoid. So, as I say, my sense is that they're probably planning within the Conservative Party some sort of exit strategy, though what form that takes and the timing for that remains uncertain.
And Michael, I want to bring in Jeremy Corbyn here, of course, because he has been hugely unpopular, even amongst people within his own party. Will he now gain more respect, or was it simply that he fares well on the campaign trail, but once he gets back to Westminster, we're back to square one?
Well, I would suggest that his position now in the Labour Party is pretty much unassailable, and there are a lot of Labour MPs who, I think 80% of MPs before the election actually voted in the no confidence against him. They now owe their livelihood, their position, to Jeremy Corbyn. So I think you'll see the solidification of that party. And Robert Shrimsley in the FT today, I think, made a very good point. Will the party believe in one more heave on this sort of quite left-wing agenda, or will they tack towards the centre in order to actually secure power? Because at the end of the day, politics is all about securing power, because you can't affect people's lives if you don't have the levers of government. So I think that will be the interesting thing to watch. I don't see Jeremy Corbyn facing a leadership contest, and I don't see him stepping down.
OK, Joe Twyman, Michael Moszynski, thanks very much for your time. Well,